We want to talk about a topic that it affects everybody. I don't care how old you are, it affects everybody. And we are talking about our attention span. We know that new studies kind of show that it is just getting shorter and shorter, with the average shrinking as little as 47 seconds. And really want to talk about how the science is breaking this all down. So, in order, joining us this morning to really talk more about this is Dr. Gloria Mark with UC Irvine. First off, Dr. Mark, thanks so much for taking part of your time to speak with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess before we really dive into what we're seeing now, kind of talk about, how does attention spans work and how does it differ as we grow from kids to adults?
Yeah, so we've started we started measuring attention spans with college students, and we find that there actually is not much difference between college age and adults. Now, we haven't measured children younger than, say, 18, so we can't say, but of course, we do know that Gen Z grew up with the internet, and so um, the way that their minds are developing is very different than adults whose minds have, are already pretty much well formed. So we really can't say.
Okay, so what can you talk about? What research has shown over the change in the last years, I guess last 2 decades rather. We know technology has really taken over. Everyone's on their smartphones. I feel like back in the day you could sit down and maybe read a book for about 10 minutes. Now I feel like the average person can probably get tired after 30 seconds. What have you seen in your research?
Yeah, so we first started measuring attention spans on screens uh, back in 2003. And at that time, we found they averaged 2.5 minutes on a screen, which surprised me at the time. I didn't realize they would be that short. But we continued measuring them, and we measure them objectively. In other words, we're not asking people to tell us how much time they spent on the screen, but we use measures to be able to find out exactly how long it is. In 2012, it went down to 75 seconds on average. And then starting from about 2014 on, we find that attention spans averaged 47 seconds. And others have also replicated this.
Wow. And, obviously this is going to have an impact on society. As we move forward, how do you think this is going to impact, the brains of everyone? For example, I was out somewhere and I saw a 2 year old that was, instead of just being in his own boredness, the parents gave him a smartphone, so they're kind of used to seeing a smartphone at 2 years old to kind of take away that attention span. So, do you think this has a impact as we get older, and let alone people our own age, like adults, grown adults, sitting on their phone instead of just kind of sitting in their own boredom, if that makes sense?
Absolutely, it has an effect because, first of all, as I mentioned, ch children's minds are still developing, and we still don't know what the effects are on that development when children are exposed to media at a very young age. But what we do know is that people pick up habits. And when habits are formed at a very young age, it becomes harder and harder for people to break out of these habits. And of course, short attention spans are also being reinforced by things in society. So, for example, uh, lessons in many schools are now being shortened to accommodate children's attention spans. And we know that we're seeing book summaries everywhere. So instead of reading a full book, people can just simply um, read a 15-minute summary and get the gist of the book. And so it's, all of society is accommodating the fact that our attention spans are getting shorter, and it's reinforcing it. So I think these habits that we're developing will, be harder and harder to break out of.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, my producer Sarah just made a great point just now. You kind of talked about how people look for a summary of a book. Netflix almost does that sometimes with maybe a show that you're watching. It gives you a summary or kind of recap because we are
Yes.
so used to being on our phones while watching a TV show, and it seems counterproductive because it's hard to multitask two things at once. Do you think over time that things will get worse with our attention span, or how do we kind of combat this as we move forward?
Well, it's hard to predict the future if things will get worse or if they've already bottomed out. But I think what we really need to do is come up with solutions. And, one of the easiest solutions is to get people to retrain their attention by reading books and paying attention to what's called long form content. Read longer magazine articles, pay attention in conversations without your phones, without being interrupted with your phones. So I think in our everyday behaviors, we can do things to help retrain our minds to be able to pay attention longer.
Yeah, I think that's not bad. Maybe challenge yourself every day, little by little, kind of like practicing a new
Yes.
skill. Awesome. Well, I was going to say anything else you think I may have mentioned, Dr. Mark, or missed, I should say.
Well, I guess one thing I should mention is people feel that multitasking, which is actually switching our attention, is a badge of honor. It's a good thing to do, but it's actually a bad thing. It harms our performance. We make more errors. It takes longer to do work, and we get stressed. And all of those are shown by research to be the case. So what's better is to what's called monotask, do one thing at a time, finish it, and then move on to something else as opposed to trying to do multiple things and switching our attention back and forth.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think that's a good advice right there. I'm guilty as charged of myself of trying to do multiple things at one time around the apartment instead of just like you said, focusing on one task at mine. And that's a good way to start. Good way to start. So, Dr.
Yeah,
Gloria Mark, we appreciate it so much out of University of California, Irvine. We appreciate you taking part of your morning to speak with us.
my pleasure.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your day, and we are going to take a break here at 11:32. When we get back, we have much more news here on Live Impact News, everyone.